This one's a bit different, but it's one of the areas of my finance life that I get most of the questions on, which is how did I manage to buy my home at 28 when I was on a 25k salary? This was quite a few years ago. I'm significantly older than 28 years old now, but I can still share with you what I did and give you some tips to help you on that same journey. It was with maths tuition, FYI, so a little side hustle. That's all it was, a side hustle. But I'm going to talk you through how I did that so you can go and do it yourself now, because if anything, now is the best time in terms of technology, opportunities, the internet. You know what I'm saying. And of course, if you've not come across me before, my name is Krystle McGilvery. I am a finance and behavioural change consultant. My company, Mind Over Money, works with people like you, individuals, on your personal finance and your business finance. I am a chartered accountant, so I've been doing this for over 15 years. I love this stuff, talking about money, business, psychology. Yes, it's exciting. All right. I'm thrilled, as you can see. I can't wait to dive in. Okay, let's go. Let's talk about how you can save up a substantial amount of money to buy your first property. Okay, to start, we must address the first kind of elephant in the room. If you have never earned money outside of your 9 to 5, the thought of having a side hustle outside of work might be really scary. I understand that. It doesn't have to be. That's my first. It doesn't have to be. So I started my tuition business because my boyfriend at the time had a younger brother who needed help with their maths. And I was like, yeah, sure. I had studied financial maths at university. Mathematics was my expertise. So I was like, yeah, sure. I'd give him some lessons for free, of course. And then I was like, hold on a second. There's something here. And I just sat and thought about it and thought, what if he, as I think he was approaching his GCSEs, I don't remember, but if he needed support, there are surely lots of other kids who need support when it comes to maths. So I did a bit of Googling, and this is the first time I'd really dived into the space of entrepreneurship and business. And I saw that there was an opportunity for me to start teaching maths and getting paid for it. Now, we must make clear, I dived in and did research on how to bring this to life and where the opportunities were. What I didn't have to dive into too tough is my area of expertise, because I had the mathematical experience, knowledge, confidence to teach somebody maths. So that was easy. And I also had my audience already, which was secondary school students, so I didn't have to research that. So I would been able to cut out quite a lot of the research. But I'll pause here and just say, obviously, if you're looking to dive into an area that's not your expertise and you haven't had somebody somewhat fall into your lap and give you the opportunity to identify where you can make money with ease, then of course, look at that first. Make sure you have the knowledge that you need, or you have the resource or the people around you to fulfill that purpose, and you know who you'll be selling it to. But I already knew that it was going to be secondary school students, ideally at GCSE level, because that's when the greatest need is, because then they're about to do exams, which are going to be with them for the rest of their life. So I was like, well, that's where I'm going to sit, because obviously I'm going to get the most demand. So of course, if you are the expert and we're focused on tuition, if you are here for the tuition specific side hustle, then you are the expertise. You know the subject, tick. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about going crazy on the curriculum. That's not really required, and I'll come back to that later. Here you want to focus on, okay, how am I going to get myself out there? Part of my research was checking to see what people were charging for this stuff. Like, I'd never done anything like this before. My mother has always been self-employed, so she's always been doing her own thing and earning money outside of a 9 to 5. She never had a 9 to 5. So I knew it was possible, and I had that vision before me. But what I didn't know is, how much do I charge to teach maths? So I had to go on the internet back in, I don't know, what was that? A while ago, and search how much do people charge for this, or how much would people pay for this? And I think at that point, my price point was £15 per hour. And that's where I started. And of course, that was a combination of me not being confident about what I was doing to charge for it. But I did see some people advertising for £15 per hour. And obviously, of course, I built a nice little spreadsheet to work out how much money I would make potentially by working however many days. So, you know, maybe working only on a Saturday morning, driving around in my little car, seeing about 3 students per week. What's that? £45, £15 each. It built up straight away quite easy, £180 per month. So that was quite nice and tidy. So you want to get clear about your price point. And there's a few things you can consider. For example, think about where you live. Think about the areas and the demographics of the people that live there. Ideally, most of my students were private students, and that happened because of my price point. So often people tend to want to price their services low because they think that's what people can afford. But here's a quick nugget. You price your product or service according to who you are selling to. So me keeping my price point low would have attracted people who can afford the low price point. But quite quickly, I saw an opportunity here to earn quite large sums of money on top of my 9 to 5 and work towards buying my first property. So I decided I want to buy my house in 2 years. So I calculated how much I needed to make every single month to be able to earn that deposit. I think it was £20,000 at the time, but earn that in 2 years. And I worked out every single month how much I need to take home, divide that by how many sessions I was happy to deliver every single month, and that became my price point. And that's what I did because I wanted to hit that target. And you can do the same thing. Once you set your price point and you know there's an audience who will be willing to pay for that, you will get the sales. So I priced mine significantly higher eventually than was on the market, and I attracted mainly private school students because they had the money to pay. Now, as I just mentioned a moment ago, I decided how much I wanted to make in that 2-year window. I decided how much money I wanted to make every single month. I decided how much I wanted to work every single month or every week teaching. So I dictated my schedule. I decided that I wanted to work, I think it was 3 days per week after work and 2 sessions on a Saturday. I think at the peak of me making the most money every single month, I looked at my lifestyle. Now, at that point, I was working full time as an accounts assistant or something like that, or a finance manager. I can't remember, but I was working in finance and I was studying my SEMA accountancy qualification. So that meant I would be at work all day, go to the student's house. So I'd sold my car because I was saving towards to buy my property. I was like, get rid of any expense and just focus all money on stacking to buy my first home. So I sold my car, which meant I was taking bus to work. After work, I'd go straight to the student's house because I would teach at their home near where I lived, do the 1-hour session, leave the student's home, get on the bus, go back home, which obviously was at mum's. I had taken over her living room table at this point and would study until midnight. And that was my daily cycle. So obviously start work, get to work for 9 o'clock. And that was my daily cycle. 3 days of the week when I was happy to teach. And then a Sunday morning, I would jump on the bus and go to my student's house. I was committed. I was on it. I was focused. And that is so required. If you're trying to reach a specific financial target or a specific goal or whatever it may be, you have to be so committed. You have to start with a clear vision of what it is that you want. Then build out a clear plan, step by step, of exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. And then also, now this is like extremely crucial, think about the external environment around you. What needs to change to allow you to focus on those steps that you've drawn out? So if you speak to any of my friends, I didn't exist. I wasn't going on the girly holidays. I was very rigid in what I was doing and why I was doing it. If I'm looking back now, maybe I wouldn't be so rigid and maybe I'd leave a bit more time for fun. But regardless, I'd still have a plan and stick to that. Now, a couple of things I want to touch on here. The first one is thinking about the curriculum. Now, I recently have started working with somebody who was looking or is looking to set up their own tuition company and do private teaching and be in control of their finances, which is absolutely phenomenal. And one concern which comes up quite a lot when I talk to various people about setting up their tuition business is nervousness around the curriculum. Now, depending on your subject area, mine is maths, it depends on what's required. So with maths, especially when you get to GCSE level, what's important is you having the correct method and getting to the right answer. So the way I would approach my teaching is I would either identify the key areas that they wanted to cover for that term, that period, do an initial assessment to understand where their weaknesses were and focus that term on those subject areas. So that gave me the time and space to go away in the background and make sure I was up to speed on those areas of expertise so I could deliver and support that student to the best of my ability. What was not required was for me to know the entire syllabus like the back of my hand, because that's not where your expertise lies. Your expertise lies in knowing the content, as in knowing what the formulas are, the essays are, the poems are, whatever subject you're in, and then being able to educate and impart that knowledge onto somebody else in a way that they can understand. And on top of that, which of course is my expertise, is being able to have patience, empathy, make the student feel good about themselves, encourage them, support them. I would literally be that tutor who was sitting there clapping during the session. And I wonder if any of my students are going to watch this video, but I would literally clap and get excited. So what you're bringing to that student is not just knowledge of the curriculum, it's all the others that go around it. So I would either get clear about the areas we're going to focus on for that term, or alternatively, before each individual session, decide and confirm with the student exactly what they want to cover. Now, especially when I was teaching A-level students or university level math students, I would definitely have them send me before the session the exact area they want to cover, because as anybody knows who studies maths, A-level maths is hard. I found my A-levels to be harder than my degree. And I think most maths people who study maths know and agree with that. So when it came to me teaching A-level or university level students, I would get them to send me beforehand exactly what area they want to learn. I would go away and make sure that I was up to speed, because there's always some kind of area that I'm like, what was this again? So when it came to doing the session, it was plain sailing. So the point I want to make is, do not worry about having to know the entire syllabus before you get started. Okay, there's more. A couple of things around securing your first client. Now, again, if you've never made money outside of your 9 to 5, the thought of getting a client, winning a client can be a bit scary and uncomfortable. And I want you to remember a few things. They have come to you because something you have shown them confirms that you are good enough and you are capable, or they like you. That is a tick, 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 tick. And maybe assume it's all three. Assume that you're already in a good position. They're looking at you positively. Feel good about that. Number 2, you want to show confidence in what you're doing. So the parent, if it's a child that you're teaching, needs to feel that they can put that child in your hands and you're going to give them the best of your ability. You're going to guide them and support them with all the good things that they require. So you must make sure that you present confidence when you're speaking to the parent or the student directly. You will be leading them from this point forward. So that might mean you making sure you have identified some key areas or some key questions you want to ask them before you actually go ahead and have the first session. So this will be questions you put to the parent to get an understanding of where the student is. What's their favourite areas? What areas they really struggle with? How do they feel generally about the topic? Have they mentioned anything? What have you heard from their teachers? Or when you're talking to the student directly, what do you really like? What don't you like? What do you think is the worst thing you've had to do? And here it can be a really informal, relaxed conversation because you're trying to build trust and make sure everybody's comfortable. To end, I want you to make sure you continuously innovate and stay abreast of what's changing in the space. There is lots of technology to help you make your Zoom calls or your online sessions much more engaging. And maybe also here, I'll touch on different ways you can actually get your students. You can, of course, advertise yourself. The majority of my work was sourced by my local library. I put up a bright yellow, I think it was A5, very simple picture on the wall, not even a picture, it was just a plain yellow page with some sentences saying maths tuition, financial graduate, or whatever it was that I said, maths graduate, and stuck that. And do you remember back in the day, you'd have the paper and you'd have the little rectangles and you had the dotted lines so they could just tear off your telephone number. That's exactly what I had. Back then, there was no QR code. So whatever you need to do a QR code and make it easy for people to access you. If you're comfortable, put your telephone number. If not, set up an email address. But make sure you're approachable and people can get in touch. So as local libraries, you can advertise in shops. You can advertise, of course, now on social media. And think about partnerships. Think creatively about where your student will be hanging out. Whether that's an adult student in university or whether it's a child at school, think about where they will be, and that's where you need to be to attract them. And then, of course, take advantage of the network that you have. Ask friends and family if they know anybody who needs tuition, and put your word out there. Give people discounts and opportunities to try you first without committing. Maybe you offer an initial assessment for free or for a discounted price. I could go on here, but I think I've given you enough information to get started. Of course, if you want any extra support, send me an email or pop a comment in the video before and I will happily answer. I've got a bunch of resources that I could share with you or directly to various websites that may be able to help, but hopefully that has been helpful. And till next time, ciao.